So yeah, thank you for the opportunity. This is actually my very first talk, so very exciting. And so let's just jump in. Yeah, so as already mentioned, I would like to talk a little bit about how to prove your talent and stay motivated during your application journey. Um, why? Because I am actually working in recruiting or in talent acquisition for about a year now. So I am focusing mainly on recruiting young talents, so basically interns and working students. But I'm also doing employer branding and developer relations, which is very fun. But I actually studied literary and cultural studies and somehow ended up in the talent acquisition world, mainly because I just love communication and the thought of providing people with a great candidate experience. And I also love staying creative while doing that. So that's kind of my journey in a nutshell. And so I will try to give you some basic tips on how to write your CV, for instance, or what to keep in mind while working on your applications in general, but also how to deal with rejections and interviews and the process in general. But before I will do so, I just wanted to say that this is very personal. So I know that there are a lot of recruiters and a lot of people and companies, and everybody is doing it differently. And I'm not the expert of everything. So just want to share my personal advice with you, and hopefully it can help maybe some of you. So yeah, I just wanted to start with this quote, um, kind of motivational quote. You have to start somewhere, because before you actually, yeah, start an interview or sign an offer, even you have to start writing or creating your application. Um, and as a general rule of thumb, I always like to say that it's good to keep it as short as possible and as long as necessary. Basically, just because, as you can imagine, recruiters get a lot of applications, and it's super helpful if you provide them with irrelevant information only, and it's also less work for you. So that's a good thing. Yeah, so what does that mean? It means only send what you're being asked for in the job description, basically. Most of the time, that's a CV. Sometimes it's also a cover letter or some kind of work sample or portfolio or code example, GitHub, whatever you work with, whatever the role is, whatever they ask you for. Then your practical experience matters. So write in your CV what you have done so far, no matter if it's an internship, your studies, personal projects, or anything else. And also just don't list them, because it's also interesting to see right away what exactly you've been doing at each station. And then it's also always good to try and give an impression about yourself in your CV. Um, you can do that by creating a neat and structured CV, for instance. So it's just like the looks is already giving away a little bit about yourself, or you can include a section with your personal interests and skills, because this way the recruiter or the hiring manager gets a feeling for you as a person already. So very basic advice I'm giving you here right now. Then I wanted to say that you don't need a picture of yourself, or you don't need to mention your date of birth, your address, or even your gender, relationship status, etc. Because I still see that a lot, but I think that should be completely irrelevant, and especially if you don't feel comfortable with sharing this. And I also feel, again, that's very personal, that if a company is asking for that, that's kind of a red flag for me, because if they want to know your gender and or how you look like, it's kind of weird for me. But yeah, it's again something you always have to feel comfortable, and that's the most important thing. And yeah, last but not least, do your research. So find out about the company culture and the recruiter, even maybe the contact person in general, and use this knowledge to use the right style in terms of language and so on. So you just, yeah, it's just a match right away. So sometimes it's more corporate, sometimes it's more informal. So it's good to do a little bit of research before that. So my next slide, you got this. So now, as soon as you send out your application, things are getting real. So if you don't make it to the first interview, my number one advice is don't take it personal, because I mean, I know it's disappointing and an extremely emotional matter, but if you see it from the recruiter's point of view, for instance, there have been so many applications and there's no way everyone gets a shot. So sometimes there are simply others who match the requirements better, and it's a sure thing that one day this will be you with one company. So the most important thing is that it's a match from both sides, so don't let rejections get you down. If you are invited for a first interview, that's really great and also exciting. These could be different kinds of interviews. So from my personal and also professional experiences, there are, for instance, HR interviews or tech interviews. And so HR interviews with a recruiter, for instance, they are not too technical, and they are mainly to find out more about you and your experiences, and to see if it's a cultural fit in general. So keep in mind that interviews are not only for the employer, but also for yourself. So the other way around, because you also have to find out if you want to work there. So you can always be critical and also ask critical questions. I highly encourage you to do that. And yeah, in technical interviews, obviously, there will be some colleagues from the respective department who will assess your technical skills. So depending on the company, on the recruiter, and on the general setting, this could be a coding challenge or whatever. Also depends, the length of the application process also always depends on the company. I know that there are some companies, they have like 8 steps of interviews and assessments and everything, and some companies, they only have like 2 interviews and that's it. So that's always very individual. So before the interview, it's always good to make sure to know who you're talking to. So most of the time they will let you know who you will talk to. So look for your interview partner, maybe on LinkedIn, read about the company on their website, social media, or yeah, just general Wikipedia, depending on the size of the company, because obviously it will help a lot and you will feel prepared. And during the interview, try to relax and be yourself. Don't pretend to be somebody you're not. and because in the end they invited you to get to know you and to find out if you're a match, and if they don't like you for who you are or what you can do, it doesn't make sense. And so even if you're at the beginning of your career, don't downplay your skills. So you can always be proud of what you achieved so far and can show that and talk about that with pride, because everybody started once. You can't know everything, right? So also don't get nervous or insecure if you're being asked tricky questions, because sometimes it's not about giving the correct answer, but rather to show how you deal with a question, and yeah, how to you behave in those kind of situations. And again, one of my very personal approaches are or is that if your interview partner is being mean or even disrespectful, consider if you even want to work for them, because in my opinion, the recruiter should be an ambassador for the company, in its culture and should care for a positive candidate journey, no matter the outcome. So that's something that everybody should keep in mind, in my opinion. Yeah, and last but not least, even if you have to go through many processes and rejections, it wasn't all for nothing, because I think practice makes perfect, and you learn a lot from every interview and every application you send out. So that's my conclusion. In the end, it will all be worth it. So I just think that recruiters shouldn't be your enemies. I know that recruiters don't have the best reputation for some people, and that's a shame, but I also made some bad experiences with them. But in a perfect world, I just think they are responsible for a great candidate experience, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting hired right away or you get everything you want, but rather that you're being treated respectfully, and that they are reliable, even if you don't get the job. And yeah, just don't let negative experiences let you down, because at some point you will sign an offer, and every situation made you grow personally and professionally. So yeah, that was my talk. Quite a motivational speech, I feel like, but I hope that it gave you kind of positive vibes to go with your future application processes.